Okay. Welcome, Greg.
Hey,
How you doing?
Everything's going good.
Good to be back.
Yeah. We both worked long days in the ER and now we're here doing this.
Here we are. Yeah. Good. We're going, actually putting this on live a day earlier than planned due to some commitments, but that's great. I'm Rick Sorensen, physician and learning a lot about weight loss.
Yeah. And I'm Greg Camp, nurse practitioner, and also have a passion for this wellness and weight loss. And that's why we do it. And then we're both emergency room providers. And so we get to see all kinds of other things when we're not doing this.
Right. That's awesome. Here we talk about weight loss and sustainable health, lifestyle changes. This is the Healthier Ever After podcast. Before we get started, we just want to remind everyone that information shared on the podcast here is for educational and informational purposes only, and is not intended to be medical advice. We discuss many topics such as weight loss strategies, nutrition, exercise, GLP-1 medications, we're going to get into that soon, supplements, and weight loss programs. But this podcast is not a substitute for personalized medical care. Always consult with your physician or a qualified healthcare provider before starting or changing any medication, supplement, or health program, especially if you have an underlying medical condition. All right, with that out of the way, let's get into it. We've been talking for the last couple of weeks. We've been talking about the 8 Steps to Wellness, the wellness guide, the simple wellness guide. This is something we're able to have you download from the internet. But it's been simple. We've talked about the 25% rule, focusing on protein, the importance of hydration.
Yeah.
We've talked about cutting back on sugar and eating real foods. So tonight, let's start off. Let's talk about the last couple of these simple topics designed to be sustainable adjustments, maybe you could even say, to what you normally do that can, in the aggregate, combine to yield real results and real weight loss, and not just a number on a scale, but health and how well you feel and fit and everything else. So let's get into it. We're talking initially, I think about, a lot of people talk about exercise. I got to get a gym membership.
Yeah.
I got to, go work out a ton in the gym. And that's not really what I would consider one of our sustainable suggestions, is just make this massive jump into a huge workout regimen.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about tonight with that?
Well, I think, and this is, and Rick hit it on the head. I think a lot of times we just bite off more than we can chew with, we've been recently talking about New Year's stuff, considering it's close to the first of the year. And I'd say higher than 90% of people are like, hey, I want to exercise more, get stronger, move more, take up some kind of new activity. And I think that's great. And we can all agree that that's a good goal. But, where I think people get off track is that they bite off more than they can chew. They want to go from not working out at all or being very inactive to very active. And once again, that's a good goal mentally, but is it going to be sustainable? Are we going to be able to stick with that long term? And we would argue that if you can, great, but we're not trying to discourage anyone, but we also, once again, are trying to build these pillars around things that we feel are sustainable, whether you're going to a gym or not. So I really think that we'll talk more about this and what we suggest in order to try to help make this more sustainable and to make it to where, when you can't go and get your traditional workout at the gym, what is the answer for that? And why does it matter? And how much does it matter? And can you be successful in losing weight? Or even just being generally healthy without, hitting the gym 6 days a week.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about then. So let's say I just can't, I'm busy. I've got a lot of things. I'm running errands. I got kids going to school. I've got to go to the grocery store, making a meal, whatever. How do I incorporate some things into my daily routine that I am already doing that might increase my movement just a little bit?
I think, and that's a good question, right? Because for the most part, maybe all of us could argue that none of us are too busy to work out. Maybe we could say that we just don't make time for it. But if that's the case, well, to say, hey, I'm going to make more time for the gym and do all these things, like, once again, this can be overwhelming. So we suggest adding 2 to 4 things a day to your life to be more active. And that doesn't mean necessarily one of those being a traditional workout, such as going to the gym or going for a jog or a walk or a hike. Sometimes that can just be easy, simple things. Just get moving. So, me and Rick have talked about all kinds of ideas of things that you can do to increase your activity, such as walking from the back of the parking lot at the store, just parking away at the back and
park far away at Costco.
Yeah. Walk to the mailbox at your house. It seems trivial, right? But you start adding in 2 to 4 things a day that you weren't doing before, or things that you weren't really paying attention to.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're much more active than you were. Now, let's say that you are able to add in a couple days a week, at least to begin, going to the gym and doing a traditional exercise, riding your bike, going on a hike. Now you've significantly increased the amount of really activity you're doing, overall activity. Maybe some of those things not being traditional exercise, but you've increased the amount of your body's moving by a significant margin, and not really, in a lot of cases, not really added a lot of additional time to your day where you have to set it aside.
Right. Or it's not, a big chunk where you have dedicated to that. It's adding maybe a little bit, maybe walking to the mailbox takes you an extra 5 minutes. Yeah. If you're on the phone call with, family, friends, whoever, stand up. Yeah. Move around the house a little bit, walk into the backyard, stay standing and maybe moving a little bit instead of just sit on the couch and talk. I mean, that's something that's not going to take any more time, but just your positioning of your body is going to be a little bit different and take a little bit more energy. And so you add up, 2 to 4 of these small little changes, and we're just increasing that movement a little bit, increasing the calories you burn, increasing kind of your fitness until you feel like you can really, if you want to get into a little more dedicated workout regimen.
Yeah. I mean, this is just this is something you can add. Once again, we kind of talked about it last week. We constantly focus weight loss and wellness around things that taken away, right? Take away the sweets, take away the calories. Right. This is one of those, you're helping yourself by adding something in. And, you had brought up walking while you're talking on the phone. I had a patient that he spent most of his day on the phone, telephone calls, constantly on the phone. A lot of these were business calls that frankly he didn't need to be at his desk for. And how he started implementing it, feeling like he didn't have time for a traditional workout, was that he just started walking around his office, just literally doing circles around the outside of his office. And when it was too hot or too cold, he would just walk inside of his office, and he would just constantly be walking. And it was such a boost for him. He eventually started adding in and incorporating more traditional exercise. But for him, it was just that initial start.
Yeah. It's not a big enough change that you're just going to be overwhelmed with it.
Right.
But it makes a change.
And it does make a difference. I mean, getting your body moving, you feel a difference there. I mean, if you go from 0 to 100, you're not working out at all, and you go to the gym and try to, max out on bench and squats and everything else. I mean, you're going to be feeling that. And oftentimes they find that this can be a discouraging factor. People get sore, and then they get injured, and now they don't, now you've really,
now it's like I have to wait for 2 weeks more or 3.
Yeah. So it can be very frustrating. I think a lot of this is, and the things that we focus on are a lot more than just the activity. It's a mindset, right? So another example of a patient that started walking from the back of the store or back of the store parking lot, right? She said she'd go to Walmart, she would park at the back of the store. And what she would find is that before, she would just park wherever, usually the closest spot available. And she would walk in, and she's like, I would go like straight to the cookie aisle. Now she's walking clear from the back of the parking lot. And she's like, by the time she made it into the store, especially here in Southern Utah, where it's quite warm during the summer, she was not going anywhere near the cookie aisle. She was like, I hiked all the way in from the back of the parking lot, and I'm not going anywhere near the cookie aisle. Cause for her, it was a mentality thing, right? Yeah. Adding those extra couple hundred steps, was that the real difference? No, for her, it was more so a mentality that she was working at this, and she didn't set aside a time, at least originally, set too much time aside to have to go to the gym. She just started adding these little things in.
That's a great example. That's a great example of how, this small little change can be more sustainable, because not only it's a few more steps, it's not a bunch, but it changed her whole mindset. Yep. Like after walking that far to get into the store, I am not going to deter or detract or destroy my other efforts.
Yep.
And I'm not going to the cookie aisle. I'm just doing my thing. Because she felt that little bit of difference.
Yeah. Speaking of mindset, something that comes to mind as you're talking about that is a lot of people will get in the mindset that if I don't make it to the gym, let's say you have this goal of making it to the gym 5 days a week, and that's a great goal. Once again, there's really no problem with any of that. But one thing that truly makes a difference is in this mindset is that if you set yourself up as a goal to go to the gym 5 days a week, and then you miss one of those days, or you miss 2 of those days, that can be so detracting and just kind of bring in that negative energy. You're like, oh boy, I only made it 3 days. But when you make a goal of just adding 2 to 4 things a day to your general activity regimen, now you can say, hey, look, I didn't make it to the gym today, but I did 3 extra things that I wouldn't normally have done. I added in 3 extra activities that I wouldn't have done otherwise. And so now you can say, hey, well, maybe my goal is more like 2 times a week, because I think that's much more attainable. And the rest of the days, without fail, I'm going to get in these extra activities. Even if it's 1 or 2 things for a day, you didn't completely just throw the day away saying, I didn't make it to the gym, so this day was not a success, because that's not really the case. And it's not what you do in any one given day which is going to define your success, right? It's this continuous behavior day after day after day. So getting in this mentality, we've found with our patients and even with ourselves that ultimately we can have a lot more success when we take a little bit smaller steps towards these successes. And really the evidence would show that when you're moving more, you're going to feel better. You're going to be able to achieve these goals a lot easier. And, just time wise, you're going to be able to accomplish these things without getting in your gym clothes, right? Without getting ready to go to the gym. Geez, that's a half an hour experience unto itself.
Right. Which, it's a big change. That's great. That the little things, the little changes make sustainable changes that work out together well. Okay, great. So I'm moving a little more. I'm taking a few extra steps. I'm focusing my mind on that. Yeah. And now let's move to what else can I do as far as activity. That's an activity. That's a movement thing. Mm-hmm. We'll get into that a lot more at some point. What about sleep? Like a lot of times I think, oh man, I my meals, sleeping doesn't do anything. It's like I'm not expending energy. I'm sleeping as get fat time. Sure. I think a lot of people think about it that way. Like I need to, if I can stay up and just move a little more, that's been great. But what about sleep?
Well, I think it's counterintuitive in a lot of ways, like to think of sleep as a solution for weight loss, right? You're like, okay, so I'm going to sleep to lose more weight. It really does seem counterintuitive.
Just lay there still asleep.
Yes. Yeah. One thing it goes discounted significantly. There's a million studies. You can look them up from there. We'll post stuff, on our website and things like that. And we'll get in more to this stuff. We'll dive deep. Right now, we're staying kind of surface level and really introducing these topics to you. We'll definitely dive in more and talk about studies at a later time. But there's a million studies out there, and especially as I was getting ready to get into doing weight loss as a medical provider, I could find so many studies that talked about the importance of sleep and weight loss, and that the chances of you being significantly overweight went up exponentially with the lack of sleep, with people that struggle with sleep. That could be because of shift work, that could be because someone just doesn't sleep well for a number of reasons. So it's just, this is why this was added in here. It's hard to find any data out there that would support that you can lose weight and sustain that weight loss without prioritizing sleep. Now, we always recommend 7 to 8 hours. That's kind of your general recommendations for, by most medical literature would support about 7 to 8 hours. But if you're only getting 2 and we can increase that to 4 or 6, that's going to be a significant help.
Yeah, it is.
And
a lot of things happen in your sleep that aren't, we just don't think about a lot. It's not just rest, wake up. I mean, your body is busy doing things. It's regulating hormones, your hunger hormones. It's regulating your cortisol, decreasing the stress that you have. I mean, less sleep, you get more stress, you get more cortisol, you get more fat. Yeah. Right. Like, I mean, so sleep does a whole lot more with your mind, with your hormone levels and those kind of things that really affect how it handles all those other things during your awake time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think Rick, hit on the big point is like, we don't think about what our body's doing during sleep, but there's just a lot of things that our body doesn't do when we're awake. When we're busy fighting the day's battles, whatever that is, work or kids or school or whatever you're doing, it's a lot of times our body will reserve a lot of the regulation, the regulating of hormones and things, really for sleep time. And if we're not getting good sleep consistently, then when is your body going to be able to balance this stuff out? It just really doesn't have an opportunity to. And what does a stressed body do? A stressed body doesn't know why it's stressing. It just knows I'm really worried about food, shelter, water, or whatever other bad things could be going on. And so you're going to pack on the pounds.
Yep.
So even if you're doing all the other things right, you're moving more and you're trying to eat better and things like that. Well, okay, but you're not getting any sleep to support all these processes. Sleep is something that we should be spending about a third of our life doing. It sounds like a lot, but there's a reason for that. It's a very important process. And so, we really want you to push the sleep. And
don't forget that sleep is an important key in this.
Yeah, it does. It seems like we always want to do the things like work out and work on our diets. And these are obviously huge pillars of losing weight and getting healthy. But the sleep goes by the wayside, even though we do hear it talked about in a lot of, medical settings where sleep is so important. I don't think a lot of people think about sleep in terms of weight loss and overall wellness.
Yeah.
And ultimately, there's just not really any studies that would not show that it's significantly harder to lose and maintain that loss of weight without getting good sleep. And so it's look at your habits. Look at are you focusing on your phone too much? Are you keeping your Are you keeping your mind too occupied before you go to bed? Are you doing activities like where you're not really setting a general set bedtime? Your body is a creature of habit.
Yeah.
It wants to kind of go to bed around the same time. And if you're all over the place, well, it's going to have a hard time putting you in a good sleep pattern. So, take your time, try to figure out some of the little things, the basic things that you can do in order to really focus in on getting your sleep patterns okay. A lot of times that'll correct any minor level of not sleeping well. You can correct a lot of that through some really minor changes.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, no, you talked about a lot of that, and that's the key things we talk about it as sleep hygiene. You mentioned several things, Greg, about setting an alarm, simple things. And that's what we want to try and remind everyone on this little step to wellness is try to make the simple things. So a lot of times setting an alarm, a bedtime alarm or a get ready for bed alarm, and give yourself a few minutes to sort of wind down and prepare your mind for sleep. And again, like scrolling on the phone, there's certain other things that often we talk about just in the medical field about helping your sleep be better. Sometimes there's some other, maybe a little more drastic changes for some people is get the TV out of the room. Don't do anything. If you're not sleeping well at night, try not to do anything in your bedroom that isn't sleeping related, right? Like a lot of people, watch TV, read a book, do those things out of the bed. And so that your body gets trained to sleep in the bed. Like I get in bed, that is time to sleep. It's not time to read. It's not time to watch TV. It's not time to do a crossword puzzle. Yeah. It's not time to plan for the day, work on the laptop, scroll the internet. Those things keep my mind active and make an association unconsciously about what I'm supposed to be doing. And if your body knows, get into the habit of this is time to sleep and not do those other things, you're going to actually get better sleep eventually.
Agreed. Yeah. And it's such an, I think it switched to the,
oh man,
sorry, we're doing
let's
our
go to
videos here. We're somewhere in there.
We're trying to work out there we are.
Hey.
Okay. We're both on.
I think those are all really, really good points. It really ultimately comes down to setting up your body for success for sleep. I talk to a lot of patients that are in the situation where they're like, hey, look, I just don't sleep well. And when we start breaking it down, it does end up coming down to things that you were talking about. They're really not setting up their mind or their body up for sleep.
Right.
They're expecting to be able to turn off, a horror film, that they've been watching and just go to bed. And your body really isn't designed that way. The sun goes down, you start releasing melatonin into the system, and you're supposed to be getting yourself somewhat ready for going to sleep and getting into that rest and digest mode. And unfortunately, a lot of us, and sometimes not to our own fault, some of us just have different jobs or things, but either way, at some point you have some time set aside for sleeping. I hope. If you don't, then you should. And it really is important to just look at the basic sleep habits that you've developed. And if they're not great ones, then start implementing some good ones. It may just be one or two things that you need to change in order to get in a good pattern of sleep to make sure you go to sleep, and hopefully, barring anything that wakes you up, that you can stay asleep pretty well. And once again, with the idea that you're trying to shoot for 7 to 8 hours of sleep, we know that's not reality.
It's a target. Yep.
It's just a target.
And if you don't get that much, try to get good sleep in the time that you have.
Yep.
Right. Better hygiene. All right. Good. Okay. So we got sleep time.
Yep.
Now let's talk about how in relation to when we're awake, when we're asleep, when we eat in that time. Like it maybe having a bowl of ice cream right before I go to bed relaxes me, and that's my thing. Right.
Yeah.
How is that
pretty common, right? Guys are notorious for ice cream and cereal before bed. It's just like, it just kind of, I don't know what it is. Maybe that's just my observations, but I've seen that across the board. Cereal and ice cream before bed is just this universal thing that I'm sure a lot of women like too, but I've just seen so many men report that is a thing for them.
Yep.
And what Rick's getting to is our next topic of discussion, and really kind of the final one in these pillars that we've given for our wellness plan, which is timing of eating.
Yep.
We really truly believe, and the science would support that. You can't eat from the time you wake up till the time you go to sleep and ever get in a calorie deficit where you're, I guess you could if you were eating like a carrot every 2 hours and that's it. But most of us are not going to eat like that, right? So you can't eat with any kind of regularity and all throughout the day from the time you wake up till the time you go to bed and expect to lose weight or a significant amount of weight over a period of time. It just doesn't usually happen. And so it really, the biggest problem is that when are you putting in the energy? Calories, ultimately what you're putting in calorie wise is you're supposed to be putting in energy. That's for your body to use for energy. And we're not trying to put that in before we're trying to go down to rest, because your body's trying to burn energy as you go throughout the day. And that's the first thing your body will go to when you put in calories. It's going to go to that source of energy first. And so if you put in ice cream or cereal or whatever your guilty pleasure is before you go to bed, unfortunately, what's going to happen is that your body, now you're trying to go to sleep.
Well, your body knows. It's like it's like, well, okay, I got my sleep stuff. I've got this stress, and I got to do my nighttime thing that your body does, and a lot of that is not burn a bunch of calories. And so it's like, I get it. I'm going to be laying here doing the mental stuff, doing the stress release, but I'm not going to need a whole bunch of energy to walk around the block or anything. And so I'm going to take this ice cream or cereal, whatever it was that I'm still getting energy from, and I'm going to just store that. And the body stores energy in one way, and that's fat.
Yep.
And so we want to talk about a little bit like how soon before you go to bed do you eat, or do you eat all day? And there's a lot of science behind this. And in fact, I've been a big fan of the book, The Obesity Code. That talks a lot about this. And he talks a lot about fasting and intermittent fasting, which not really a term that we necessarily use a lot, but that's a thing. And it really is about timing. And it's not just about timing meals or waiting time, but it's about providing your body extended periods of time when it's not giving much of insulin, and it's not thinking, oh, I just got a bunch of food, I'm going to store everything I can and save it. And so having those long periods of time that you're not eating, that you're not telling your body, hey, I've got food in, let's store it up and save it for later. That makes it, I think, much more helpful in saying, okay, I got this, whatever period of time. The longer that can be, the better your body becomes at burning what it already has, rather than trying to store more.
Yeah. I think ultimately what Rick's getting at, just to phrase it in a different way, is really just ultimately where the ultimate goal is to try to get your body, if you're trying to lose weight and just feel good, ultimately you are trying to get your body into a period of time throughout a 24-hour period where you're burning fat instead of calories that you're inputting. And if you're putting in calories all day long, there's no way. When would your body ever get into the point where
it's never going to feel like it has the signal that, oh, okay, I don't have food coming in, I need to burn what I've stored.
Yep.
Right. It never.
Yeah. And so
kind of realizes that.
The general rule of thumb is we don't want to be eating 3 to 4 hours before we go to bed. So you cut it off 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed. What time that is kind of different for everyone, right? Depending on your job and when you do
when
that.
you've set your bedtime alarm.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so if you generally go to bed at 10 o'clock, well, then you should be looking at cutting off that eating between 6 and 7 o'clock to give you that 3 to 4 hours to digest that meal and to be able to go to bed without, we've used the car reference in here a lot. And that's, you don't want to fuel up the car just to park it in the garage. I mean, you're not going anywhere. Why would you fuel up the car? Because we know what your body's going to do with it. Your body is going to just store it.
Yeah.
And so ultimately we got to look at it like that. But if you're talking about intermittent fasting, which, timing eating, really, you're just timing your eating. You're just saying, hey, look, I'm going to, during my busiest time of the day, which is, let's say, middle of the day when most people are active and doing things, that's when you should be putting in the fuel. That's when you're using your body the most.
Yep.
And at the least active times of your day, that's not when you should be putting in fuel. Another, so if you said that I'm going to set aside an 8 to 10 hour window that I eat food, that should be an 8 to 10 hour window during the middle of your day when you're most busy.
Yeah.
And you should really be shutting down that intake when you're trying to get in that rest and digest mode and just settle for
and that period of time that you have your, this is my eat window. So it's 8 hours a day. I'm going to set my bedtime at 10 p.m. Right. So I back up 3 to 4 hours, 6, 7 p.m. I should be done eating for the day.
Yeah.
Right. So back that up a little bit, 6 o'clock. So I should, maybe 10 a.m. is when I start eating something, get a little breakfast if I want.
Yeah. The way I've heard it put before, and I loved it. I can't even source who I got it from because I watched it on I'm sure
it was probably something I said.
Probably something. Exactly. It was most like anything smart I say will have come from Rick. No, it was a gal talking, and I can't remember what I was watching. I think a podcast or something. And she had said, eat during when the sun's up. Why would you be putting if you're putting fuel in your body when the sun's down? I mean, once your body knows, just through your rhythm, your circadian rhythm, through when the sun's gone down. Yep. And so if you're putting fuel in your body at that time, I mean, your body's kind of getting ready for rest and you're just cranking, putting more energy in there. That's not usually going to be a productive thing. So if you can just think about, hey, I'm only putting fuel in my body when the sun's up, and when the sun goes down, that's the time that I'm looking at really shutting down my eating. You can still drink some water or whatever you need to do that way if you're still thirsty, because that's not going to be any problem at all. That's a good way, at least for me, to look at it, where when the sun's going down, that's really a time that we need to be looking at shutting down our eating and not putting in more energy, because most of us are not going to be utilizing that energy once the sun's gone down.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you eat kind of matters a little bit as well. I know some folks, one in particular who really does, a pretty rigid schedule, tries and doesn't do breakfast really, and it's like 11 or noon when she starts eating, and then stops, has dinner and has found that, dinner and then like a dessert or something, she wakes up hungrier the next morning. And she's found that dinner and then the last thing in that window that she'll have is like a little protein shake, a little protein, and just found that what that does is it allows her to extend that fasting window well into the next morning, noontime ish, without really feeling overwhelmed. And it's just something that over time she realized that for my body, this is what helps me be able to not feel famished by the time I start my eating window.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's been super helpful.
If you figure, if she, for that patient, for example, let's say she stops eating at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
I mean, let's say 4 to 6 hours after that, she gets done digesting her meal. Her body's basically utilized what it can from that meal. And now she's gone into where she's burning fat for fuel. I mean, let's say that happens at 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, now she's going from 4 in the morning until, let's say, 10, 11 or noon the next day, where from 4 in the morning until noon the next day, she is just simply burning fat for fuel. Yeah. When you think of it like that, where you're saying, hey, I'm going to take 6 to 8 hours of my day and that's just going to be a burn time for me. Whatever I'm doing, it doesn't really matter. If you wanted to add a workout in there, you could also burn some more fuel that way. But really, ultimately, you're just trying to get in windows of period, of windows every day where you are burning some fat for fuel. because that's ultimately what, I mean, going down to just the basic science of this, that's ultimately what we're trying to do, right? Create enough of a calorie deficit and then get in your body into a window where it can start using fat for fuel. If you don't ever allow your body to get into that window, meaning you're eating from the second you wake up until the time you go to bed, you might get into that window maybe an hour or two while you're sleeping, but that's not going to be long enough.
And the longer kind of chunks of time that you can be in that window where your body's like, I need to burn the fuel I have stored, burn fat. That's going to make this much more successful and much more helpful, and really how you're going to shed those pounds over time. And we're not talking like huge amounts. A healthy amount of weight loss is a pound or two every week.
Yep.
It's not a ton, but that's what's sustainable, because it's not going to shock your body to think, oh my gosh, I'm starving to death.
Yeah. And think about how this all works together, right? So the other thing that Rick had brought up about a patient he's been seeing is that she has that protein right before she goes into where she's going to have a pretty good, solid 12 to 14 hour fasting window. Right. And, it's so important to remember that the other pillars, right? Getting your protein in, getting real foods so you can get all the nutrients you need, also getting your water in. These are all going to be getting your sleep. I mean, these are all going to be things that really just, a lot of people are worried that they're going to feel very hungry during that window. Right. Most people that I see that are able to keep their protein up while they're eating, that are able to eat real food so they can keep their nutritional value up, they're getting their water intake.
Yeah, their water.
Most people actually report an increase in energy during that time, not a decrease.
Right.
They actually find that their energy is better. And so, it's kind of
and there's some getting used to it. Like, yes. It's not one of these things that all of a sudden you're going to go from whatever you're doing to, I'm going to fast for 18 hours a day and not feel anything. Sure. Like that's a pretty drastic change. And again, we're not about huge, drastic, unsustainable change. It's about making some changes that allow your body to adjust and
absolutely
become more healthy.
And that's where, and not to, we will get it all into all this later, but that's a lot of times in our clinic where while we're making these adjustments and patients end up wanting to use something for medication wise to be able to suppress some of those cravings and appetite while they're making adjustments. Yeah. Not everyone that gets on weight loss medication stays on it, but if you have these pillars in place and then you use a medication, if you decide to go that route to help suppress some appetite and help you get into these good habits, a lot of times that's all they need is really just a boost.
Well, and you mentioned that, and I think this, that kind of wraps up our 8 pillars on the wellness guide. And we'll reiterate these and get into this again and again and again, because it really is key things. But you talked about medications. Maybe next week we finally break into, let's talk about what we are talking about, right? With medications. For today though, I think we've done it. We wrapped up the 8 steps to wellness guide over the last few episodes. The things today, moving to more small changes in your movement patterns, timing your meals right, and then don't forget sleeping well, good sleep hygiene.
You're going to be moving more. You got to rest.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. I think that does it for today.
Great.
Don't forget that everything here is for educational purposes only, not meant to replace your healthcare provider. If you have questions or concerns about starting any program, please see your licensed medical provider. Until next time, we'll see you. We'll talk about medications, weight loss medications next week.
Take care.